You, sir, are an idiot! Hello, and welcome to this brand new YouTube channel, The Flamin' Idiot, dedicated to the restoration and preservation of the G2 Honda Civic. After a long successful run in the 1970s, Honda launched its second generation of vehicles in 1979. Lessons learned during the G1 era produced a higher quality and more refined car. The G2 Honda Civic was produced from 1979 through 1983, giving the American car buyers a reliable, well-made, economical vehicle, and attesting to the American and European auto manufacturers, Honda was here to stay. The G2 Civic is a forgotten gem on which Honda had built a reputation. The Flaming Idiot channel is dedicated to the restoration and preservation of the G2 Honda Civic. Most car restoration enthusiasts seem to pass on the G2 Civic, considering it not worth the effort. We used to say the same thing about the G1 Honda, yet these are now sought-after cars and starting to command higher prices. Will the G2 Honda be next to appreciate in value like the G1? Hard to say. What made the first generation Honda Civic so special? Nothing really. Back in the day, everyone had one. They were cheap, reliable, fuel-efficient little cars in an era when cheap, fuel-efficient little cars were in demand. No one kept their G1 Civic. It was a throwaway car. When it broke, you just got another one. Today, there are not many G1 Civics left. Former owners are feeling nostalgic, creating a demand for the G1 with limited supply. Same can be said for the G2 Civic. Try and find one.
And here we have it, our project car. As you can see, it's got very little rust, but otherwise in excellent condition. This is original paint, and there seems to be something missing here under the hood. Oh, the engine and transmission are already out. Well, that's okay. It saves a lot of effort trying to pull it. Overall, the interior is in excellent condition. Those are seat covers on top of the seats, so the original seats are probably in rough condition, but that's okay. It seems to have about 96,000 kilometers on it. That's kilometers, not miles. That's approximately 50,000 miles, but this could be 196,000 kilometers. Overall, the dash and door panels seem to be in excellent condition and not in need of any extensive restoration. The other side of the car, again, very good condition. Paint is heavily oxidized, but this is original paint from 1983. The engine bay has been tidied up. Overall, very little rust. There is a little bit of body damage right there, right behind the bumper. The trim is missing, but that's not bad. It's easily repaired. Minor spots of rust on the trunk lid, minor spots of rust. Anything like that is easily repaired. Here's the engine, fully dismantled. The block is being prepared for honing. Using standard bore, standard pistons. The block has been cleaned with oven cleaner and has been completely ground down with a wire brush, painted, and ready for hone. Here's the engine bay all tidied up. You can see the rust right there where the battery normally sits. That's very common on these cars, and one rust hole that will have to be dealt with. All that rust is going to have to be ground off. Rust preventative measures must be taken. That would be the worst spot of rust on the whole car. This is common for this generation of Honda. The other side looks really nice. Almost like a time machine back in 1983. And this is when Honda's Japanese cars were actually made in Japan. The grille, the rad, the hood, everything was removed to make ease of removal of the engine and transmission. All this rust will be taken down, and right down to bare metal, and then prepped. Now, what are my plans for this car? Well, I plan to restore it back to original OEM specs, just the way Honda made it when it left the factory. Now, I see a lot of people will take these Gen 2 Hondas and they'll put
modern engines in it, aftermarket engines. They'll put in maybe engines from different manufacturers. I'm going to rebuild the original 1500 1.5 liter 1500cc engine that this car originally came with. It's the original iron block with aluminum head. I'm going to use the original carburetor and try and keep this car as original as possible. I'm going to try and not use any aftermarket parts. I'm going to try and stay with as many original parts as I possibly can. This is going to be an econo build, so it's not going to be a Pebble Beach concourse 100-point car. It's going to be built about as well as you can do in your garage. It's not going to be a show car. It's not going to appear in many magazines. It's just going to be a car that I simply restore, maybe put collector's plates on, and drive around every once in a while. That's about it. I realize these cars are not really worth a lot of money. Why would I restore something like this? Why not? I kind of like restoring the oddball cars, the ones that not everybody restores. Anybody can go buy a Camaro or a Mustang or something like that and restore that, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different. This is different. Now, this is not the first time I've restored a car. I've done other cars in the past. And as you can see, I seem to like the oddball cars, the ones that nobody else really wants to restore. Now with the Honda, surprisingly enough, even though it's not the most popular car in the world, parts are readily available and relatively cheap. So hopefully I can try and keep the costs down and just do a nice econo build, restore it as best to my abilities, and just have a nice original looking Honda Civic, one that maybe not everybody has. Now I do have another project that has been on the back burner for some time. Once the Honda is done, I will be getting to that one. Today, we're going to try taking on that rust hole that we found in the Honda's inner fender well. Now, how are we going to do that? With this. This is a piece of a Camaro. Just an old Camaro that I had laying around. Now, some of the purists might say, oh, you can't mix Honda and Chevy and this and that. It's sheet metal. It's just metal. So I cut a chunk off an old Camaro, and I've been pounding it into shape to try and match that hole that's in the Honda's inner fender well. Now, you always start off, of course, safety first. Always. Put on your eyes. Put on your ears. Now with this, I'd usually say wear gloves, but in this case I need to be able to feel the metal, feel how it's bending, feel how it's twisting, know exactly the subtle nuances of the metal as I'm pounding it. So all I'm going to use, ball peen hammer and a vise, that's it. As you can see, this area has all been cleaned off, descaled right down to metal. All the rust has been removed. Now I'm just trying to fit in this patch panel. Trying to get it fit just right so it can be welded into place. Now, what I'm doing is actually fitting it from behind. That way I can see how the edges fit. I'm not so much worried about the length and the width. Right now I'm just trying to get the shape. Once I've got the shape, then I can trim it to size and then do a butt weld all the way around, grind it down, and then what you'll see, you won't even know a patch was ever even put there on top or from in behind. And as you can see right here, right in between the frame and the panel, there's a good 1/4 inch gap, and this corner still needs to be brought up and sharpened a bit. Now, once you've got the part in the desired shape that you need, in order to patch up the hole, you need to trim it down to size. The best way to trim it is to first put it in place exactly where you want it. About there. And in order to make a pattern, take regular spray paint and just paint it. Now, when you cut it out, you will have the exact shape that you need. Okay, I've spent a lot of time hammering and pounding this little piece of a Camaro into the desired shape that I need. I have two complex curves, and it should fit just into this spot, just like so. Now that's a pretty good fit. I'm going to worry about this hole later. Once this is all welded in, I can grind and file that little hole out so that it fits the rubber grommet correctly. What we're going to do now is spot weld this into place. Okay, first thing I did was made sure to remove the paint from all the edges, and I removed the paint that I had sprayed on in order to make the template, so that when the weld goes, you're not mixing weld with paint, because paint can actually contaminate a weld. A lot of people may think it may just burn off, but actually it won't. So in order to get a proper weld, the rule of thumb is a good weld is all in the prep. So if you prep the metal properly, you prep all the surfaces properly, you're going to get a good weld.